Hello and welcome to another episode of the TFD Performance Podcast. For anyone listening, I'm Lauren, the expert dietitian Nash, and today I'm joined by not Geordie, not Dojo, not Jack, but a very, very, very special guest who, I'm lucky that he's still here functioning actually, because for anyone that has followed along on our socials over the last week, one of our athletes, Toby Steele, just competed a 240-kilometer ultra marathon, and he lived to tell the tale and he's with us today. We're going to talk about his preparation, what happened on the day. But anyway, enough from me. Toby, welcome. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. I feel like until we just hopped on this call actually a bit off air, we hadn't even had a proper, check-in in terms of how it went. So it was really nice to get a bit of a quick brief overview of how it went. Obviously, I've had Geordie's recount of the story, but I'm looking forward to talking to you a bit more about it today. I guess first things first is, how are you feeling? How have you pulled up from that event? It's been about a couple of days since you finished. Just talk to us about how you're feeling right now.
I'm feeling good at the moment. Today's probably like every day I'm getting better. Because generally the day after is probably the worst day. You can barely move, and sometimes you can barely eat and sleep. So sleep and everything else is getting better. I'm taking more food in every day, which is good, and my feet and legs are coming back finally, and I'm already doing some running. So
nice.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
No, that's awesome. And for anyone listening who maybe's not heard of the event before, or actually hasn't been listening or following our socials and has no idea what I was just talking about, could you just give everyone a bit of a description of what the event was, what it entails, the selection process, and I guess why on earth you decided to do it?
So the ultra marathon I just did was the 240-kilometer coast to Kosci. The name is pretty self-explanatory. You start on a beach in this place called Eden down in New South Wales, and you run 240 kilometers west to the tallest peak in Australia, Mount Kosciusko. Only 50 people in Australia or the world do it. You have to apply. You have to list all the races you've done in the past 12 to 24 months, and then write a little blurb about yourself and your running career. My race was kind of, it was a bit unplanned. I had a friend, one night I was out having some drinks actually, and a friend of mine, he told me about the race, and I was like, yeah, I know it. And I just said so hard to get into, and then obviously it's so hard to complete just because of and the next day I found myself applying for the race, and 2 weeks after that, the race director, Greg Wallace, gave me a call at work. I thought it was someone trying to sell me energy. So when he spoke and told me who he was, I was kind of in shock, and then I couldn't stop smiling for a week until the field was announced. And then, yeah, it felt real, and it took me 12 weeks to get ready for the race. And yeah, so you travel from Eden down on the coast and 240 kilometers to Mount Kosciusko. So it's a mix of gravel, roads, and bitumen. So it's all different, but it's kind of similar in a sense that it's like not soft surface. And then there's a lot of hills which hurt. Yeah. And then obviously you got to get up the biggest hill of them all, which is Mount Kosciusko at the end, and then run back down, and then you finish. So nice. You get 46 hours to do it. So
yeah, okay. I love how all these, great athletic feats are often decided whilst intoxicated, and after a couple of days, athleticism and alcoholism, they don't go hand in hand. But sometimes the best decisions and the best events come after a couple of beers. So good on you.
It was definitely on my bucket list. It was just like, I wasn't planning on doing it. I wasn't planning on doing it as soon as this year. So I'm pretty lucky and pretty grateful for the opportunity that I was presented. So yeah.
Incredible. And, prior to this, so 240 kilometers is no joke, right? That's a pretty big run. What was your longest distance that you had done prior to Coast to Kosci?
Prior to Coast to Kosci, I've done 100 kilometers multiple times, but I did 133 kilometers over 20 hours at the start of this year. So I had to run 100 and it turned out the full distance is 242. So about 110 kilometers more than my biggest run prior to Kosci. So
huge.
Yeah, it was quite big.
Yeah, and you just mentioned as well, once you found out, you kind of took around 12 weeks to prepare. Obviously, that's not preparing from baseline fitness, because I can tell you right now, if I set my mind to try and run 240 Ks in 12 weeks, that would not happen. However, you obviously had a really good base there. And I suppose a good place, to start this podcast is, I guess, talking about the training and the preparation leading into it, because I think we started working together maybe about 8 weeks out. I think around 8 weeks. Do you think, is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and I remember doing, okay, we've got this, we're gonna help this dude out. He's running 240 Ks, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, it's a lot of carbohydrates that's gonna take. But anyway, let's talk to listeners through a little bit about what we did. Maybe I should get your perception as opposed to me thinking it went well, but it didn't, and you're like, nah, I hated working with you. If we think about that 8-week period leading up, what were some of the things that you learned that you found helpful that really set you up for this race?
I think the one thing I'm not really good with, or wasn't really good with prior to working with you, was being able to consume enough food for the amount of training I was doing. I was quite, I had this mindset of I could run off anything, like meaning probably less than I needed to. So prior to working with you, I was consuming I was having quite a big breakfast, and then lunch was like a tin of tuna and a cup of rice, which is just like ridiculous for the amount of exercise I was doing. So I learned that more is good, and it actually worked well with me. Like my sleep improved, my recovery improved. I had a lot of energy left at the end of long runs, like even 50-kilometer runs. I'd feel like I could go for like much further. So just being able to know that more food isn't bad is probably what I learned most.
Yeah, no, that's important. And I think, I speak to a lot of people about it as well, because there's that misconception that, okay, if I eat more, I'm just going to gain weight. But of course, context is key. But for someone like yourself, the more food you put in, the more energy you there have. And then the more energy you can expend on your exercise, which is then going to obviously improve performance. But like you said, recovery, sleep. And I still actually remember, I think maybe 2 weeks in or something, you said, oh, at what point am I actually going to start recovering? And I'm thinking, okay, please trust the process. I'm sure it's going to get better. And obviously we got there eventually. But, like you said, it wasn't just focusing on your training nutrition, but it was also having a look at your overall nutrition and what you're eating outside of training really does matter. Because even though someone like yourself, you're spending a lot of hours every week training, right? So your nutrition during or and after training does take up a large portion of your day, but so does the whole 24-hour period as well, especially for someone with a goal like yourself. So you really committed to that. You trusted the process of, reviewing the day-to-day diet as well as training. And I guess something that we started pretty early on was I got you to fill out a bit of a training journal every week. So we'd have a weekly chat, we'd kind of come up with a game plan for the weekend, and then you were very patient, and you took the time to write a little bit of almost a reflection after each training session. And I think that really helped us to kind of dial in on, how we could formulate that plan towards the end. We kind of decided what worked well, what didn't work well. Do you think that helped at all in terms of preparing for the event?
Yeah, I feel like it did, because you put the numbers down on paper, and you have the knowledge to be able to work out how much water weight I'm losing per run, and you put a number to it, you realize that how necessary fluids in particular are during a run. Because there was one run where I lost, I consumed nearly 5 liters of fluid, and I still lost 6 liters. So it's knowing that and putting it down on paper, and having you being able to figure it out and tell me you've lost this much, so we still need to pick it up and make sure we're taking in enough fluid. That helped a lot. I think just and it helps being accountable as well. When you have someone like yourself who's working with me, it's good to work with them rather than not against them. But if I'm not filling that out, there's not really getting information to help me improve. my running. So
yeah, no, and
I
thank you.
feel like
I know it can be a bit of a pain.
yeah, I feel like the work ethic needs to be reciprocated. So I
Yeah,
tried my best to
that's a good point. That's a good point, and I appreciate it because you were a pleasure to work
yeah,
with the whole way through. And I think it was a team effort. Obviously, yes, I'm the one that has the background, but without your input and without actually trialing what we were doing and trying different things and suggesting other things as well, I don't think we would have come up with what we did come up with. And as we'll mention, a little bit later on, the plan didn't exactly go to plan, and that's to be expected with any event,
yeah,
especially something as long as your event. But
yeah,
coming into it, we did formulate, like you said early on, you're a liquids guy. You much prefer
yeah,
liquids as opposed to solids. And the base of
yeah,
our plan that we did have coming into the event was based off, maple syrup, tailwind, some gels, and then maybe some solid food at checkpoints if you could get them in, which, we'll talk about in a second. But I think, yeah, it's really important. Through training, we did kind of come up with an hourly carbohydrate goal, a sodium goal,
yeah,
and a liquid goal, which was, again, just a goal, not a black and white number. But I guess, moving through that preparation, it was really helpful. Like you said, both ways, we both learned from each other and came up with a pretty decent plan moving forward. I guess, that was the 8 weeks prior to. Let's talk briefly about that week leading up to the event. I know we did a bit of a carb load. You also had to drive from Queensland down to New South Wales. It's a lot of hours sitting down when you're about to, be on your feet for almost, 40 hours. So talk to us a little bit about that couple of days leading into the event.
So leading into the event, leading into any event, I don't really like to do much. I usually just I'm a lounge lizard. So obviously I had to drive down there and I still have to get the amount of food that I'm generally eating in, which I struggled with driving down. But once I'm down there, usually it's same breakfast and then snacks might increase to fruit, a Yo Pro, and 1 or 2 muesli bars. And then obviously I'm drinking a high carbohydrate drink, Maximus is my go-to. And then lunch is generally pretty big. And then dinner for the days, 2 days before and 1 day before, dinner's usually some source of protein, a heap of veggies, and 2 cups of rice. And then if I can eat that, I'm usually pretty well done and ready for a race. So it's just, you got to make yourself really full without feeling sick, but it's hard to do. And then I was so sick of rice by the end of it. So I was eating potatoes and stuff like that. So just as many carbs as possible, not exerting a lot of energy as well. I had a couple of shakeout runs. But generally just staying off my feet and eating as much food as possible and getting ready.
And, a training taper and a carbohydrate load are a match made in heaven, really, because you're not depleting glycogen from training, plus you're loading it in with your pasta, rice, Maximus, all those types of things. So, even though it can be uncomfortable, at least, if we think about it, your day-to-day diet has already got a pretty decent carbohydrate intake. So at least that carb load, while, yes, it was pretty significant, it wasn't, triple what you would normally have on a regular day. So, it was good to fill up those glycogen stores before the event. And then I reckon let's get into the actual event itself. So it started Friday morning, 2nd of December, wasn't it, the date?
Yeah, so it started on Friday. Generally, because I've eaten so much food in the days leading up, I don't really have a big breakfast. So, but obviously because I'm about to run 240 kilometers, it's still good to get some source of food into the body rather than just starving yourself. So I had, I think 4 Wheat Bix and some maple syrup with some fruit. And then just some water, just to stay hydrated. And then I had 24 kilometers to do unaided, so I wouldn't see my support crew, and I wouldn't be able to refill my fluids or gels. So I had to carry about 2 liters of fluids. I did consume all the fluid, and I think 2 gels in that 24 kilometers. But I think an issue that arises that I had already consumed so much fluid and stuff like that. I kind of got sick of it really quickly. The maple syrup and the water was out the door by 10 o'clock, so 4 hours or something into the race. I was over it, and I just needed some plain water, and then the days were relatively hot, so I think that played a factor into the maple syrup as well. And then from there, it was pretty much tailwind, 2 scoops of tailwind with like 500 mils of water, and then 500 mils of water by itself, and then just salt tablets, usually 1 or 2. I started out having 1, and then Geordie, he said we got to keep it up, so I would have 2, and then just alternate between 2 and 1 depending on how I was going. So
nice. And yeah, for anyone listening, I don't think we mentioned, but Geordie, the flight dietitian, he was down with Toby in New South Wales, crewing him and shoving nutrition down his face when he didn't want to. It was great.
He did 120 kilometers as well. So
yeah, I know, MVP. And also our videographer Billy, did he end up doing around 50 or 60 kilometers with you?
Yeah, he did. I think he did 59 or something. So it's pretty amazing when you don't even want to try, you can get pretty fast. So
yeah, exactly. Because I'm sitting at home, checking the leaderboard and hoping, okay, he's still running, he's checked in through here, blah blah blah. And because I didn't really have much correspondence with you during the race, and then I see George post, and I was like, okay, sweet, yep, awesome, yeah, they're still running, they're still going.
Still moving forward, yeah.
When you said this morning, that you got sick of the maple syrup, I was just like, I thought maple syrup was going to be our go-to because, you were smashing maple syrup on 5-hour Saturday, 5-hour Sunday runs, no worries. But then, the conditions, I think, on the day were a lot warmer than we anticipated. So I think you mentioned the conditions were a lot hotter than normal, kind of turned you off the maple syrup. But again, Geordie was there, both of you adjusted on the fly. And that's really important during these endurance events because having a plan is great. And that's what you should definitely have. Having a plan is better than no plan, but also having the resources and the capacity to change when needed is a huge bonus. And Taylor, you had the unflavored one, and did you have mandarin or?
Yeah, mandarin.
Yeah. At least as well, in terms of not getting sick of it, you kind of had the plain one and a flavor to rotate between as well. And talk to us about your hydration. So obviously you had the salt tablets in there. As far as I'm aware, you didn't cramp once, did you, on that whole 240K race?
I didn't cramp once, no.
That's pretty impressive, I think. 240 Ks, it was, 26, 28 degrees during the day and then down to 6 degrees at night. Obviously those changes in environmental conditions, sweating, exercising for that long, a perfect habitat really for cramps to come on. But I think that the fact that you didn't have any, I know you've mentioned in the past that you don't typically struggle with cramps.
Yeah.
But I think, a great ode to your physical conditioning and also your hydration. So both you and Geordie told me that throughout the whole event, your urine was clear, which is great in terms of, bright yellow, meaning you were dehydrated. Talk to me how you think your hydration went throughout the whole event and, what went well and maybe what could go better in future events.
I think my hydration was pretty good, even though I thought my nutrition could have been better, like solid wise, but I feel like I knew that if I wasn't having solids, I needed to be having something else to keep me going. So that's why I actually tried to consume as much fluid as possible. And I think you need to be aware of that. Like, I doubt anyone would ever get sick of fluids during a race. So it's like, but if you do, it's like you have the solids to rely on. Mm-hmm. So I felt like I was on top of my fluids, especially at the start of the race. I was drinking a liter of fluid every half an hour. And then obviously, as I said before, it caused me to go to the bathroom like every 10 minutes, which was quite annoying, but it was better than not being able to pee, because when you aren't peeing, or like you are peeing and it's a very dark and ominous color, quite scary. And I think that's what scares me the most, is like, because I've had issues in the past where I've had the feeling of needing to pee, but nothing will come out, or like hardly anything will come out, and then it would be like really yellow. Like in the middle of this year, I had a race where I was sick, and towards the end of it, I was hardly peeing, and then I ended up in a medic's tent on an IV. So I had to make sure that I was taking enough fluid, and you have to be mindful of that, especially on days like Friday and Saturday when the heat is like a huge factor in like the race and stuff like that. But improvements, I don't think, like fluid wise, I don't think I need to improve. I'm pretty happy with how, like, especially with the tailwind I was taking in, because usually that's like one of the things I get sick of. But I think breaking it up with the water as well helped out a lot. And then obviously I needed to be mindful that I wasn't taking any other calories in other than the tail. So I relied heavily on that. So I think improvement wise, maybe more liquid carbs in the future. I did have them. I had Coke, but that's not really hydrating. I had Maximus, which I didn't touch, and just like things like that, like the small things you realize after the race you could have done better. So maybe just more variation in the future would make me run better.
Yeah, and I think we kind of knew that going in, that solids were going to be a maybe, liquids were a definite, solids were going to be a maybe, and they were providing you with a bit of carbs, but then obviously once you take the maple syrup out of the mix, there goes pretty consistent chunk of carbohydrates. But again, like you said, this is where we learn and we improve and adapt for next time. I don't know you probably don't have to, but I'm going to put you on the spot while we're on air and say maybe you just need while it's still fresh in your mind, you need to fill out another training journal for me so that we've got it hard copy on paper moving forward. But with regards to nutrition, I think ideally we were hoping you'd be able to stomach some solids at checkpoints. Maybe just give everyone a brief overview of what you were able to have. So I know off air we talked about the chips and everything like that. So our plan was ideally if Toby could tolerate it, have some sort of a meal or mimic a snack or a meal that he would have day-to-day life. Because again, these guys are running overnight, whole day, whole night. You would normally have eaten lunch, snack, dinner, all that within this time. So that's what we were hoping to do. But of course, understanding that if that wasn't going to be tolerated, it was going to be liquids only. So maybe just give us a brief overview of what you did have and what you found really worked for you during that event.
So at the point we knew that I wasn't taking in any solids, my crew was like, Toby, you need to eat something. So I was like, just give me potato chips. So we had just plain potato chips there, and every 5Ks until we ran out, I had a packet of potato chips, which were fine, good source of carbs, had the salt as well. And then as soon as we ran out, it was Vegemite sandwiches that we were having. I don't know how I didn't have that many throughout the race, but when I did, it was rather good. And then liquid carbs was Coke. I had about 5 cans of Coke. The reason being was at night time for the caffeine, but I didn't really feel the caffeine, and tiredness was something that I struggled with throughout the race. I was at the 159K checkpoint, and and I was just like, I considered like sleeping on the side of the road for like 10 minutes, but Billy made me run to the car, and then I just said, I'm just going to sit down for 10 minutes. And then I got up and I had a caffeinated Humagel. So that had caffeine in it. And there was one, like, they were going down all right. I had one little issue with at one point. I had one, and then it was just sitting in my chest. Like I could just feel it. And then I was like, my head felt sick, and I was like, Geordie, this isn't good. Like I'm about to throw up. And so we just had to slow down and like wait for it to digest and then get moving again. And then from there we had Boost chocolate bars, which is one of my favorites, because what I like to do like during races and like something that makes me feel, I don't know, it's just like it makes me feel good, is something that I enjoyed as a kid, or like when I'm sick, like have like sick in the stomach, or I have a headache, or I can't eat anything, it's Vegemite toast that I eat. So it's like you're hurting your body so much, or like depriving your body so much of all these nutrients and stuff like that, and all you can stomach is Vegemite toast. That's like what makes me feel good when I feel like that. So that's why I eat Vegemite toast or Vegemite sandwiches. So like Boost chocolate bars is something I enjoyed when I was a kid. So, and they like sit fine. Another source of fuel, good sugar hit. And then red frogs as well became something that we used, because I've had them in past races, and obviously I wasn't taking in as much solids as I needed to. So just a way of getting quick sugar and quick fuel was red frogs.
That's perfect. Yeah. And, things like lollies, chocolates, chips, they are all condensed, volumes of calories as well, because even though during these events, it's important, yes, to meet your carbohydrate goal and your sodium and your fluids, but you're burning an insane amount of calories and energy just, keeping those legs ticking over for that long. It also gets to a point where you need to get calorie rich sources in there, and things like a boost bar is perfect. It's not about, sitting down for a 3-course meal, but again, it's incredible that you were still able to push that mental barrier despite not wanting to have solids and get something down. Something that I was really, really glad to hear is Geordie told me, because I spoke to Geordie before I spoke to you, obviously, that you didn't really have any gut issues. You didn't throw up during the race, which is incredible. But I did hear a couple of the other competitors, you passed, were on the road, on the side of the road, not doing too good. So yeah, I guess positive.
I think that's like another thing that I was conservative in my approach is like, you got to be mindful if you're eating so much food and you're not burning it, or you have too much in your stomach, it can come out in other ways. And obviously the heat plays into that as well. I know one competitor, he had some issues from, I think, about 100 Ks to 180 where he couldn't stomach anything. And then he said the only thing he could stomach and what got him to the finish line was chocolate milk. So it's like, people find different ways to like fuel themselves and be able to find that extra energy to get to the finish line. And I was lucky enough in my conservative approach that I didn't have any gut issues. I did go to the bathroom twice, which I'm grateful for, because sometimes I've had issues where I haven't been able to go to the bathroom. So I did that. And the only time I did feel sick was when I had that caffeinated gel. But generally, if someone does throw up or something does happen, they find a way and they are able to keep going. So I was lucky in that part to not experience any gastro.
I think as well, you say we did, obviously I know you were doing your own thing beforehand, but that 8 weeks leading up to it, you really committed to that intra-training. You also increased your outside of training nutrition as well. And I think just your gut was probably so well trained by the time this event came around that you almost had, a bit of an iron gut in terms of you knew what you could tolerate. We tried to do the best approach to minimize anything, but you still never know what's going to happen on the day. So I'm just really pleased that you didn't have anything awful. But like you said, that one person that struggled from 100 to 180 Ks, chocolate milk got him over the line. And I guess that just highlights as well that, any endurance nutrition plan needs to be, so individual, because what works for you is different to works to that guy, to the girl running behind you, to what would work for me or Geordie. So, again, it's committing that time in training. Obviously you're focused so much on the running and conditioning, but also you need to put a bit of effort into your nutrition and your hydration so that come race day, you're not the one that's vomiting between 100 and 180 Ks. You're the Toby that's still just cruising along and maybe one time struggled with one gel, but other than that was pretty good. So I think obviously it's an ode to your commitment to the training period as well, but adapting on the fly. And again, okay, maybe that one gel was not ideal, but we know for next time, it could have just been a one-off, or maybe at that point in the race, a caffeinated gel just didn't really sit well with you.
Yeah, 100%.
I suppose like maybe we can finish off with, expectations versus reality of this event. I think I'm going to go first. I wasn't even there, but I remember the day before the race, you, Geordie and myself were on a call and we looked at the map, right, of the elevation, and we were saying, okay, it's pretty flat for this bit, and then it goes up, and then it's fine again, and then it goes up at the end. And then, I'm speaking to Geordie about it, he just said the incline was insane. So that was kind of like my expectations versus reality, as well as the temperature. But for you, let's wrap this up with some expectations versus reality in terms of the event and also, your nutrition.
Expectations was, I didn't expect it to be as hard as it was. And I think a lot of people who did it and who I spoke to agree with me. And I think from an outsider's point of view, you probably look at it and you're like, oh, it's just like running on road from like the coast to the mountain, and the only big part is climbing the mountain. But it's not like that at all. And there's a lot of hills and outside factors that come into play. And your energy's focused so much on so many different things that it's hard to like just focus on one thing.
Yep.
Especially with nutrition as well. Like you speak to people and like it's probably one of the reasons why we keep doing it is it's just like a puzzle that no one can ever solve. And like people will like settle in on one nutrition plan and be like, yep, this is what I do, this is how it works, and like this will get me through the race. But then you can get to a race and it like won't work. I was pretty confident in the nutrition plan we had. And like it's just a matter of being able to do it and being mindful of what you're actually putting in and what you're not putting in, and then finding ways to be able to overcome issues when you aren't following the plan that you came up with.
Yep.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's just amazing to see like how other people approach different things. Like the chocolate milk with Mark, he like, there's no way I would have tried chocolate milk during the run because I would have just like passed out or thrown up uncontrollably. So it's amazing to see how he pulled through using that method, and like other people being able to eat like soup, and like noodles is something I can't eat and like I don't want to. I just think, yeah, it's just amazing like how hard it is to figure out. And yeah, it's why we keep going back, because it's just another piece of the puzzle.
Definitely. Yeah. And now we can use all of this information as a massive, training journal entry to then formulate a plan for whatever race is next. I suppose, do you have anything on the horizon, or what are you thinking next? Something smaller, the same, something bigger? At
the moment, I'm like, I said to you, and like I've said to many people, there's like ultra runners go through post-race blues, and all they want to do is jump straight back in. So you got to be mindful of that and like approach everything very like with caution. Make sure you don't jump in too quick, because it can like affect you mentally and physically. I don't know what's next. I'd just like to I'm going to enjoy December, and then when we get into the new year, I'm hoping to have a race booked by the end of the year, and then from there we can like build 2023, and hopefully it'll take me overseas to a couple races in America, and maybe in a year's time we'll be doing this again after Coast to Kosci. So
yeah, definitely. No, I look forward to it. And hopefully you still want to hang around with us for those next journeys. But it's been fun, and yeah, obviously huge congratulations on achieving it. It's incredible. 240 kilometers is no joke. Now, so I've never been a runner, right? But I'm doing triathlon, so I'm slowly building my runs. And until a couple of months ago, I'd never even ran further than 10Ks, right? So for me, oh my gosh, anything over 10Ks is huge. And then I know people like yourself who run 240Ks, and I instantly feel, insignificant in my runs. But again, perspective is everything. And it's, I'm sure you're a huge inspiration out there to many people. And hopefully now, if anyone that did the Coast to Kosci are listening, you're also an inspiration to the fact that you didn't throw up at all during that event. So,
I think anyone who is into running, they can go a lot further than they think. And like nutrition obviously is a big part of it, but you'd be surprised how much you can like your will can get you. So
yeah, I think it's definitely as much mental as it is physical and nutritional with these events. So no, I'm excited to see what happens next. Please, as homework after this, make sure you fill in that training journal for me at some point.
I will.
And we can, use that information, I suppose, to formulate a better plan for the next event. And I look forward to it. But if anyone that's listening has questions for myself or for Toby on the event, ultra running, ultra nutrition, you know where to find us. I'm the XFit Dietitian. Toby is Toby Steele. And we might do a couple of extra podcasts in the future. But for now, Toby, thank you so much. And pleased to hear you smiling, happy and healthy after that event.
Thank you for everything.
No worries. You're welcome. I'm excited for 2023.
So am I. Thank you.
Cheers, Toby.